Hey everybody, welcome back to the Wanderlust Homebody channel. I am Tina Smith and I help people travel the world without breaking the bank by house sitting and stay in their dream destinations longer through visas and residency. I have temporary residency in Mexico and a 2-year visa for Indonesia, and I'm also in the process of obtaining Benin citizenship. Welcome back to the channel. Today we are talking about how I saved more than $30,000 through house sitting over less than 3 years. And that number is very modest, as a matter of fact, and I'll tell you how in a moment. So let's get to it. The first way that I save money by house sitting is fairly obvious. If you saw the video that I showed when I explained what house sitting is, watch that if you don't know what it is and you're wondering what I'm talking about. But you know that I stay in people's homes without paying while they're away. So, of course, the first way I save is that I don't pay for lodging expenses when I travel. Now, most of the time, unless you're flying somewhere, even sometimes when you're flying somewhere, because, we've all become very adept to, our travelers have become very adept to finding the lowest price tickets. But the lodging, when you get there, your hotel fees surge, and that is cost prohibitive. A lot of people could go somewhere. You can find a ticket that cost a fairly reasonable amount of money, but to stay there for long enough to make it worthwhile is the expense that knocks some people out. So I don't have to worry about that. All I have to do is get myself there, and I cut out the lodging expense. And that is how I came up with the number in the title for this video, because I went back and I wrote it here on my notes, and I counted until I got to 200, and then I stopped. So I have spent more than 200 nights house sitting since I started back in November of 2023. So not yet 3 years. And I definitely did not house sit every month. As a matter of fact, for half of 2023 and most of 2024, I did not house sit at all. So 200 nights, I stopped at that. And I looked up the average cost for a hotel in the United States, and it was $148.83. So I rounded it up to $150, and I came up with $30,300. Now, the reason that I am so confident in rounding that number up, okay, and some of you might be like, girl, I can find a hotel room in the U.S. for, I don't know, $80, maybe less. But I did the average based on where I would stay comfortably and came up with that price after you add in taxes and everything, about $150 per night. But again, I will segue into my next reason or way of saving, bonus for house sitting, and give you the reason why I was so confident in rounding up. Because when you house sit, you do not have to eat out unless you want to. That is another huge bonus for travelers, because when you travel and you stay in a hotel, you have to eat every single meal out, because you don't have, maybe you get free continental breakfast or free, it might be a lavish breakfast, but you might get free breakfast. And a lot of times you can also get away, travel hack, if you haven't been doing this, you can go to a grocery store and buy the average breakfast food items and get like some bowls, some paper bowls or paper plates or whatever, if you're going to have cereal or yogurt or fruit, stuff like that. So you can save on that breakfast meal. And you can also, I guess, eat sandwiches and not eat out at all. But most people end up eating out when they travel and stay in a hotel. So I rounded the 148 up because I'm not even counting. I didn't even put in my total the average amount per meal when you travel and multiply that times two to be generous, but sometimes for three times three. And that's for one person. If you have four people in your family and you can cook just like you would at home. So you're not spending anything extra on food because you're taking the same food budget that you had when you were at home and just utilizing it on the road. The only thing is that you might go to an area where groceries cost more than they do at your home. So when I go to California where they have high state taxes and the costs are higher, of course I'm gonna spend extra on groceries, but it still does not end up being the equivalent of eating every meal out. It's also healthier. We cannot quantify the price of eating healthier versus eating out every meal. Okay, so you save on that. So that's another savings cost. And I'm looking at my list. Okay, why I encourage house sitting for travelers, one of the benefits or one of the biggest benefits, non-monetary, is that you get to stay in the area and scout it out and see how you like it. If it's a place that you're thinking of living, you get to see how the actual locals live, you know, to an extent, because you're not in their houses, but you get to see how things flow in the neighborhoods. Because when you stay in a hotel, you don't get to observe the activity that's going on around you in the communities and such. You don't get to know, you know, how noisy it is, what goes on at night. I'm smiling because one of my girlfriends was just living in, or she wasn't living there, but she was long term in Vietnam, my second favorite country. I love it. I was there for a while this year. And every night, and this happened while I was there too, even when I stayed at a resort initially, because it's just the custom, they karaoke. Y'all, they love karaoke. They love karaoke every single day of the week because they do not have Sunday as the Sabbath. So they karaoke. And on the weekends where she lived, they karaoke all times of the night, like till 2 and 3 in the morning, and she couldn't sleep. So you would get to know something like that before you at least stayed in a particular neighborhood by house sitting. So that has tremendous value versus you going there and just moving there, just saying, oh, I really want to live here and staying and then finding it out. This is the biggest one. And I don't know how I skipped it. But you get to save money while you are traveling abroad so that you can travel. If you're traveling abroad, which is, you know, my love, what I'm encouraging you to do. When you're traveling abroad, you have, of course, a budget. Your budget can go much further if you're not paying for lodging. So this means you can travel abroad longer and explore more countries if you have more than one place that you're prospecting. Or you can just, if you only have one place and you love it there, you can stay much longer because your money will stretch further since you're not paying for lodging. Or this can be an excellent hack for those who are trying to save to travel. So let's say you live in the US or Canada or wherever you live, and you've decided, I want to move abroad, and you have to start saving your money in order to prepare for that. So, of course, the biggest expense that most people have generally is housing. So, let's say you decide you want to travel abroad and you need to downsize so that you can save because your housing budget would be a significant savings if you didn't have it. What if you could find a 3-month, 6-month, 2-month, however many months you budgeted that you need to be able to not pay your housing expense? If you sell your house and saved the amount of money that you paid on your rent or mortgage, or just moved out of your apartment, whatever, and kept that amount towards your savings to relocate, imagine how much faster you could save. And then, you know, depending on what country you're going to, the housing there is going to be substantially lower, could be substantially lower than what you pay in the United States or Canada or Europe. Let's say perhaps, let's do a little math. Let's say perhaps your rent or mortgage is $1,500. Let's say that's rent, because that's not realistic mortgage for a lot of people. So your rent is $1,500. Let's say you're going to move to Vietnam. You can stay. A girl who was in Vietnam when I was there in February, she found an apartment for her and her son. It was a 1-bedroom for $250 per month. Now, I didn't see it, so I don't know if it's somewhere that I would have stayed, but the places that I would have stayed started at $400 that I actually, saw. So if you pay $1,500 in the US, but you're going to pay, let's round it up and say $500 wherever you're going, especially if you're going to, well, I digress. If you can find housing for $500 per month in where you're going, and you can move out of where you are now in the US or wherever you are, and save $1,500 per month, every month you're saving 3 months worth of rent. So if you can find a house sit for 4 months and not pay rent or mortgage, then that means you just saved a year's worth of living expense, housing expense rather, in the country that you want to go to. That is dope, y'all. 4 months for 12 months? Okay, so you can see how that adds up. And then my fifth and final reason, it might be my sixth. I've merged and lost count, but I think it's my fifth. My final reason is kind of a bonus, and it has happened to me several times, most memorably in Madrid when I was there, because it's so hilarious, y'all. The owners, who are American, had a smart car. I have always made fun of smart cars my whole life, ever since I remember when they came out. And I would see them and I would just laugh and laugh and laugh and say it looked like a clown car. No disrespect to people who have them, because I rode that electric smart car all around Madrid and it did me good. I loved it. It was so cute. It just was funny for me to be in one after I had made fun of them. But that's my thing. You can find many house sits where they leave their car for your use. And that saves you substantially, because if you're not in a walkable area, this is key. But if you choose to sit in a walkable area, like in the city center, you don't need a car anyway. Because a lot of places have, especially outside of the US, they have great public transportation systems. But if you need a vehicle, instead of having to rent one, especially if it's a longer sit and you're not, things aren't very accessible, just find a sit with a car. And that way you will save substantially as well. All right, so those are my 5 favorite tips for saving when you travel abroad by house sitting. And that's how I've saved. And I am passing the juicy tips on to you. And in our next video, we are going to talk about, I'm looking down at my notes because I can't remember offhand. Oh, so we're going to talk about my residency, my Mexico residency experience, and why, how I help people get residency and why. So tune in. See you later.